So let's look at Georgia in World War II. So remember, this time in American history, we're still trying to deal with getting out of the Great Depression, but the rest of the world was fighting with each other, which became World War II. So the short version of how World War II began is Germany, Japan, and Italy, and these were known as the Axis powers. They were trying to take over different countries around the world. So the U.S. decided, because we have our own issues going on our home front, that we're going to stay neutral in this. Now we did help our buddies though, which the buddies we still have them today, are called the Allied powers. And President Roosevelt in Congress passed something called the Lend-Lease Act. And the Lend-Lease Act basically said to our buddy countries, we will lend you or we will lease you, which is basically like renting, any kind of weapons, supplies, any kind of equipment you need to help you win this war. So in turn, those buddy countries of ours, the Allied powers, got more than $50 billion in supplies. Now the U.S. ended up eventually joining World War II because of this catastrophic event here, which was the bombing of Pearl Harbor. So the Japanese ended up coming and surprisingly attacking us, and they dropped bombs on our U.S. naval base in Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. So this is what it looked like after the bomb dropped. Another picture of it when the bomb dropped. As you can see, that huge explosion right there. So Roosevelt declared December the 7th a day that will live in infamy. So on this day, or actually the next day after that, the U.S. President Roosevelt declared war on Japan. Now it's a long, drawn out situation with other people that declare war on us, but just know that we eventually entered the war because of the bombing of Pearl Harbor. So this is Roosevelt signing a declaration of war against Japan. So in Georgia specifically, remember we're still having a slow recovery from the Great Depression. So when World War II started, or when the U.S. entered World War II, the war brings money. So because of the war, there was now a lot of money, millions of dollars that the federal government was pouring out, and it created a lot of jobs in Georgia, which helped our economy boom. So one of the ways our economy started to boom was the Bell Bomber plant. And the Bell Bomber plant was a plant that was located in Marietta, Georgia. And basically, they built something called B-29 bombers, which are basically like humongous planes. And they built about 660 of them. And many of those people that built those were actually women. So this Bell Bomber plant employed nearly 30,000 people. This is what the inside of the Bell Bomber plant looked like. And these are the airplanes, the B-29 airplanes. So they would actually, part of the reason they would use these words to drop bombs during the war. So this is what the place looked like. It's the land and the establishment the Bell Bomber plant was at is no longer there. Now it's still in Marietta, Georgia, but now it's an Air Force base. But on display outside of the base, they do have one of the B-29 planes they built right here. Another thing that kind of helped our economy grow because of the war efforts were our shipyards. So remember Savannah being on the Barrier Island close to the coast? So two of our major deep sea ports, which we still have those today, are Savannah and Brunswick. And they would use ships called Liberty ships to transport troops and supplies over to Europe. In Georgia, we also had the most military bases here besides Texas. So remember those military bases, much like World War One, they were used to train soldiers to go into war. So all these things help provide jobs and opportunities and helped our economy grow in Georgia. So this man, Richard Russell, was a senator, and he was very much in favor of spending more money on military to secure the U.S. or to secure international security. So he was very influential in bringing about 15 of those military bases into the state of Georgia. He also did other things like found the Center for Disease Control, which is the CDC, which we still use in this country today. So remember when COVID broke out, the CDC was the one that was really looking into it, studying it, and all of that. This man, Carl Vinson, was not much different than Richard Russell, and he's known as the father of two ocean navy. And basically, much like Richard Russell, he was also a fan of putting more money into the military and the army in hopes that it keeps us secure in the United States.